Welcome to our channel that recreates historical photos.
Number 1. The arrival of the Winthrop fleet, c. 1630. This historical image depicts the arrival of the Winthrop fleet in New England in 1630, a foundational moment in the story of Boston. Led by John Winthrop, the fleet carried Puritan settlers seeking to build a new society shaped by religious discipline, communal order, and moral purpose. The ships are shown approaching an unfamiliar coastline, emphasizing uncertainty, vulnerability, and ambition. There are no grand harbors or stone buildings yet, only dense forest, open water, and the promise of something unformed. This scene represents Boston before it was a city, when survival depended on faith, labor, and collective resolve. In AI reconstruction, this image becomes the emotional origin point of Boston's history, a moment defined not by power or commerce, but by risk, belief, and the fragile beginning of a settlement that would later shape an entire nation. Number 2. The First Meeting House, Boston, original built 1632, engraving C. 1700s. This engraving represents Boston's first meeting house, originally constructed in 1632 near what is now State Street. Though the image itself was produced later, it reflects how the building likely appeared, plain, wooden, and functional. The meeting house served not only as a place of worship, but also as the center of civic life, where laws were discussed and communal decisions were made. Its modest appearance mirrors the values of early Puritan society, which rejected ornament in favor of order and discipline. In this image, the structure stands quietly within a sparse settlement, symbolizing how governance, religion, and daily life were inseparable. When reconstructed through AI, the meeting house becomes a reminder that Boston's earliest power was not military or commercial, but social, rooted in shared belief and collective authority. Number 3. Early view of colonial Boston, late 1600s engraving. This early colonial view captures Boston when it was still a small and uncertain town, defined by muddy roads, wooden houses, and ships anchored close to shore. There is no grand skyline, only low buildings clustered tightly together, shaped by necessity rather than design. The harbor dominates the composition, reinforcing how survival and growth depended on maritime trade. Everyday life unfolds at a slower pace, marked by labor, weather, and proximity to the sea. The image conveys fragility. Fire, disease, and scarcity were constant threats. In AI reconstruction, scenes like this ground the viewer in a Boston that feels experimental and unfinished, reminding us that the later revolutionary city emerged from humble, unstable beginnings, shaped by persistence rather than inevitability. Number 4. A southeast view of the great town of Boston, c. BC 1720. This harbor-facing engraving from the early 1720s shows Boston as a growing Atlantic port, already recognizable in its layout and skyline. Church steeples rise above clustered buildings, signaling established neighborhoods and social structure. The harbor is crowded with merchant ships, highlighting Boston's role in transatlantic trade, connecting Europe, the Caribbean, and the American colonies. Unlike earlier views, this image conveys confidence and permanence. The town no longer appears temporary, it has taken root. In AI reconstruction, this scene marks Boston's transition from settlement to city, a place shaped by commerce, religion, and global exchange, setting the stage for the political tensions that would soon follow. Number 5. Long Wharf, Boston, 1743. This 1743 engraving highlights Long Wharf, the most important maritime structure in colonial Boston, and a symbol of the city's growing commercial strength. Extending far into the harbor, it served as the primary gateway for ships arriving from across the Atlantic, connecting Boston directly to Europe, the Caribbean, and beyond. Cargo, passengers, news, and new ideas all pass through this space, shaping daily life and long-term ambition. The wharf's impressive scale reflects Boston's economic power and its deep integration into global trade networks. In the image, the waterfront feels busy and purposeful, no longer fragile or isolated. AI reconstruction brings this scene to life as a place of constant movement and encounter, where sailors, merchants, laborers, and dock workers shape the rhythm and identity of the city. Long Wharf represents Boston's outward-facing character, a city defined as much by the sea as by the land beneath it. Number 6. Boston Light on Little Brewster Island, c. 1720s. This engraving shows Boston Light, completed in 1716, the first lighthouse in what would become the United States. Positioned at the entrance to Boston Harbor, it was often the first sign of land for ships arriving after long, uncertain Atlantic crossings. For sailors, the steady beam represented relief, survival, and a safe return after months at sea. The structure symbolizes safety, guidance, and continuity in a dangerous maritime world shaped by storms, reefs, and war. Its later destruction by British forces in 1776 and careful rebuilding in 1783 reflect the turbulence of revolution, loss, and national recovery. In modern AI reconstruction, Boston Light stands as a quiet witness to centuries of change, linking colonial trade, wartime conflict, technological progress, and contemporary navigation through a single enduring landmark. Number 7. Castle William, Boston Harbor, early 1700s. This image depicts Castle William on Castle Island, the primary fortification guarding Boston Harbor during the colonial era. Its massive stone walls, angular geometry, and commanding placement emphasize military authority and British imperial control. For ships entering the harbor, the fort's cannons were an unmistakable warning that Boston was closely watched and firmly defended. The scene presents a city under protection, but also under constant surveillance, where civilian life unfolded beneath armed oversight. In AI reconstruction, Castle William symbolizes the rising tension between everyday colonial society and imperial power, foreshadowing the unrest, resistance, and eventual conflict that would erupt during the American Revolution, marking the fragile boundary between security, control, and the desire for independence. Number 8. Old State House, Boston, mid-18th century. This engraving shows the Old State House, the political heart of colonial Boston and a central symbol of British authority in New England. From this prominent building, laws were debated, taxes enforced, and royal proclamations read aloud to gathered citizens in the streets below. Its elevated balcony and central location were designed to make power visible, public, and unquestioned. Yet this same visibility also made it a focal point for dissent and growing unrest. Merchants, laborers, and townspeople passed by daily, witnessing decisions that shaped their lives and livelihoods. In AI reconstruction, the Old State House becomes a stage where ordinary urban life and political tension intersected, capturing moments of debate, protest, and uncertainty. It stands as one of the most important settings in Boston's revolutionary story, where authority was challenged and the foundations of independence quietly took shape. Number 9. The destruction of the tea at Boston Harbor, 1773. This iconic image depicts the Boston Tea Party, a defining moment when American colonists boarded British ships and dumped chests of tea into Boston Harbor in protest of unfair taxation. Disguised figures, hurried movements, and dark, restless water define the tense atmosphere of the scene. At the time, this was not intended as spectacle or celebration, but as a carefully planned act of resistance carried out under the cover of night. Silence, discipline, and urgency guided every motion. In AI reconstruction, the image becomes a moment of irreversible decision when public frustration transformed into open defiance. The Boston Tea Party marks the instant Boston crossed a point of no return, signaling that protest had evolved into rebellion and that reconciliation with imperial authority was no longer possible. Number 10. Faneuil Hall, Cradle of Liberty, c. 1775. This engraving shows Faneuil Hall on the eve of the American Revolution, capturing a building that stood at the center of Boston's civic life. Serving as both a bustling marketplace and a forum for public debate, it was a space where ordinary citizens gathered to argue over taxes, representation, and the reach of British authority. Heated meetings and crowded assemblies transformed private frustration into shared purpose and collective resolve. Voices rose, ideas spread, and political awareness deepened within its walls. In AI Reconstruction, Faneuil Hall emerges as a pressure point of history, a place where conversation turned into conviction, where disagreement became organization, and where a city began to redefine itself as a community willing to challenge power and shape its own future.